Welcome back to the channel. There is no bench today because I've moved cities and I have a new job, and the apartment that I'm living in is rather small, so I don't really have room for a bench to welcome you back to. But I'm living on the west coast now, and there have been some wildfires, which I think you can see have brought some haze into the sky. So I finally have a new project idea. And this time, it'll be basically very similar to the BME 280 weather station, but this time I'll be also measuring PM 2.5 for the haze and carbon dioxide. So I've purchased the sensors already, which will arrive as packages from China do in 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm just going to do an introductory video now to show you what the air is like and kind of the motivation for the project. So the sensors will be able to measure things like this haze, but also carbon dioxide levels. And I'm also planning on building this one using LoRa as the radio. Since as this is a bigger city, there's actually a LoRa gateway. It's more towards downtown than where I am, but hopefully I will be able to connect to it. And if not, I should be able to set up my own LoRa gateway. The CO2 sensor that I have works on the principle of light. There's an infrared LED on one end of a tube, and on the other end there's a filter which filters out every wavelength except the wavelength of light that CO2 filters out. So when the light shines through the gas, depending on how much CO2 there is, some is filtered out, and a measurement can be taken. And that way it's very selective for CO2 versus other gases, because the wavelength is very precise. As I mentioned, I've already purchased all the sensors. I will leave links in the description to where you can buy them all, in case you want to play along. This is the CO2 sensor. It works with a serial connection according to that same principle that I just described earlier, using an infrared light. You can find a little more information about it here, and I'll link this article in the description as well. The next sensor is a PM 2.5 sensor. It's basically PM 2.5 is just dust of a very small particle size. I believe it's 2.5 microns. And dust of this size is very dangerous because it can make it all the way into the lungs and sometimes even into the bloodstream because it's just so small. This sensor is a carbon monoxide sensor, but it's also sensitive to other volatile gases, basically anything that can burn, like ethanol or acetone, but also other hydrocarbons like methane. So we can't use it to say an exact number of carbon monoxide, but we can use it as a general indication of how much pollution there is in the air. Finally, we're going to be using the BME 280. This is the same sensor we used in the weather station before. It gives us barometric pressure, relative humidity, and temperature all over an I2C connection. I've had really good luck with this sensor before. And for prototyping, I'll be using this ESP32 board that has LoRa built in. You can see there the connector for the antenna. Has a convenience of having a lot of compute horsepower on board, and the ESP chips are really easy to program, as well as having the OLED LCD there, which will be useful for testing things. But I expect it will use too much electricity to be used in a battery application, and we'll probably end up using an Arduino down the road. That's about it for the planning at this stage. If you have any comments or suggestions, things I've missed, other sensors I should be using, or reasons why the sensors I have aren't good for the job, please leave me a comment down below. I'd really appreciate that. Otherwise, you can expect to see videos on each of these components as they arrive in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We'll be looking at each of them in isolation and then putting them together into a finished product. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.